Diary entry. Always trying to figure out what to do with a day or my life, or 5 minutes here or there. Sometimes I'm too tired to do anything except just sit in front of the computer. So, you'd think that if I didn't ever do anything besides sit at the computer, I wouldn't need to buy things. Like today I was tempted to buy a video camera that creates this really neat effect where it looks like you're on a mini globe as you're walking around. It's this almost like fisheye thing that distorts your surroundings so it looks like you're on a sphere. And it has a selfie stick that becomes invisible because it blocks it out. Anyway, that was really neat. I saw that in a YouTube video for a VR channel, and I was tempted to buy that. But I don't really go walking around, and I'm not really that into shooting video, but basically, I don't know if this is a Western thing or a TV thing or a short attention span thing, but the advertisers, they really know how to key into our brains, often a primitive part of our brain that we have little control over, like sex and stuff, and so I'm constantly looking for little things that, that might give me happiness, that might give me happiness, which I know is a shallow, stupid way to live, but we're so instructed in that, especially here in the U.S. with advertising and television and short attention spans. Like, for some reason I'm obsessed with retro game emulation, even though I almost never play old games. When I was a kid, of course, I grew up in the 80s, in the heyday of the quarter arcades. And my family didn't have that much money. Subsequently, I didn't have much money. We didn't go to pizza places were the places where there were neat arcades. Obviously things like Chuck E. Cheese's, but that came a little after my time almost, or maybe it was a little bit more expensive. I think the place we went to is Pistol Pete's Pizza in Richardson, Texas, if I'm not mistaken, next to a Chinese restaurant that a friend of mine's family owned, I guess. Anyway, I remember playing games there. Like, that was heaven for me when I was that age. Pizza and video games. Oh. And then when I was just a teeny bit older and I could save up money, like I would get $5 and then I would ride my bike to an arcade and get $5 worth of tokens and play video games. I can't imagine I really did that many times, but I do remember doing it. There was also a pizza place in that area that I liked. Mr. Jim's, I think it was called. Then there was this other pizza. Oh, pizza is such an important thing to me. I do accept gifts of pizza. Let's see. Anyway, so I never got really good at any arcade games. I liked Tron and Battlezone. I guess I got good at Battlezone. Maybe that wasn't until I was in my 20s when I realized that if you just escaped from all the tanks by just retreating backwards all the time, those weird robotic lion things would zoom down from the sky, and then they would come barreling right towards you. So all you had to do was just constantly be moving backwards, and then just fire at them when they came at you, and you would always hit them because they would be coming straight in at you. So you could score a lot of points that way in Battlezone. I really liked the way that game looked with the vector graphics and everything. I always wish I had a Vectrex gaming system, but now they're sort of expensive. I guess I didn't even know they existed until I was in my late 20s or 30s probably. But vector graphics I think are really neat. Although I never was a huge fan of asteroids, maybe because I just wasn't very good at it. I found it difficult to control. I liked that one where you swerved around and then went in. It's escaping me at the moment. Anyway, there's so many different kinds of YouTube channels. I mean, I don't think that when I look at the statistics for my videos, like my videos are too long, and like they'll show the average listening time is like 2 minutes, but if my videos are like 20 minutes long, and that shows that somebody clicks on it, they have something open another window, and then oh, I left him on, and they close it, after 2 minutes. Anyway, we're all voting on each other's existence in so many subtle ways. But so I never was really very good at any video games. I also liked Gorf and Tron. I could make it through a wave of Gorf. I don't know if I ever made it through. Maybe I made it through a couple of waves of Gorf. I mean, a couple of complete pass-throughs. But Tron, like, I never made it through a second set through because the level of difficulty was already too much for me. I mean, maybe if I had spent more time, I could have got a little better at it. But I really like the control on that joystick for that, and the sounds I remember. Well, and of course I loved the movie Tron. I saw someone had made like a tiny little miniature Gorf system, and that looks so cool. But anyway, there are all these different retro gaming options. Obviously you can play it on a computer, or you can make a little mini tabletop arcade system. And now there are these little miniature arcades, which are really cool looking, by companies like Tiny Arcade, I guess. And then there are all the various portable devices. You can get something the size of a Game Boy that plays Nintendo games, the original Nintendo and Game Boy, and Sega games, and Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color, and basically the processors and the emulators are getting better all the time. It's only a matter of time before, any next generation is emulated in one way or another. And it's fascinating to see these devices get smaller and more cheaper and more powerful. Right now I'm sort of looking for a Dreamcast emulator that would be a portable handheld, but I don't want to pay. I can't justify myself buying a Nintendo Switch or a PlayStation, whatever the current gen of the PlayStation portable device is. So I was hoping to find something around $100 that uses something called OpenDingux, which is like a Linux distribution for gaming handhelds that some very creative people have come up with. Anyway, so that's some of the stuff on my mind. I'm obsessed with VR. I'm planning on getting a Oculus Quest when they come out later this month, early next month. I don't have a powerful enough computer to get like a Rift or a Vive, so this is the way that I can sort of dip my toe into a little bit better VR. I got this little headset thing that you put a phone into, and it works all right, but it has a Bluetooth controller that I haven't figured out how to set up. And so, the games, the best thing I've played for it is this thing that is like an Apollo moon landing thing. It's really limited in what you can do, but it's really neat looking. So I recommend that if you have a headset and access to the Android store. It's free. I think it's like, I want to say Apollo 15 or something. Anyway, so I'm really obsessed with virtual reality. I want to eventually get to where I can be sitting here in this chair, reading a book, but wearing my VR glasses, so I'll be reading it in the headset and sitting under a tree by a waterfall someplace. Or I saw some VR thing where these guys were hanging out on a space station, satellite type thing, just in space. I mean, that's what it looked like, as I guess it was rotating around the Earth. And of course in VR you can sort of look around and see things. Obviously things are more interesting the more detail and care and character that have gone into the thing. So I'm really hoping there'll be some immersive worlds that'll be really neat. I like shooting games okay, but not really that much. I want games where I can just sort of wander around. Might be neat if you could walk around a track in real life, but in VR you were walking through a landscape. But you had enough of the see-through camera thing on the outside to know where you were physically in the real world. So you could track through this virtual world. I don't know. Or it'll be neat when, like, someone can go on vacation and wear some kind of head-mounted VR camera thing, and you couldn't go on the vacation, so you put on the VR goggles and you tune in and you're connected to their experience of walking around where they're walking around, and it's like you're there, and you can tell them, hey, what's that over on the left? And they'll turn their head and then you'll see it in VR. Stuff like that. I mean, there's so many possibilities. I don't have any friends who are super into VR. I don't have that many friends. I guess I'm more of an acquaintance kind of guy at this point. Let's see. Our cat has been sick with kidney disease and cancer and anemia. We've got the anemia under control with some medicines, and we're sort of treading water with the kidney disease. He's in an advanced stage where we have to give him subcutaneous fluids every single day for the rest of his life now. His cancer, I mean, the vet place said that they found cancer in the sample, but am I the only person out there that doesn't necessarily trust a vet? I mean, obviously, some vets are amazing. I'm sure most vets are very good, competent, great people. But sometimes when I go to a vet, I mean, call me crazy. I'm crazy. But there are times when I've gone to a vet and it's felt like you've taken your car to the shop and they're telling you need a new transmission and you need to replace the hypolytic thermostat later. I don't know, I'm just making up gibberty jab, gibberty goop. Anyway, there's a part of me that feels like the vet didn't really take the sample and then said that they tested the sample and that they found cancer. That's crazy, right? I don't know. There are times when I felt very manipulated and like I made me feel like I couldn't really trust the vet. Either they were pushing things that were so expensive that wouldn't necessarily help our cat. I mean, we've put thousands and thousands into our cat's care. And believe me, he is like our child. Like I said, we give him subcutaneous fluids every day. We give him this shot for his anemia every other day, although next week I think we get to go down to twice a week. We give him B12 injections every other day, and et cetera, et cetera. He's 15 years old. We love him. Anyway, and then with my life, I have all this junk that I've collected over the years, partially because, like, what's a fun thing to do on your day off? Go to a bookstore and buy some books, or buy records, buy some electronic doodad that does magical fun things. And all that still holds true for me. I still like doing all that stuff. But, you know, I end up going through my stuff and I have all this stuff that is potentially fun that I don't use to the degree that I should. And then all this stuff that just was never very good and I should have known better. I have all these books that I theoretically want to read. See, my big problem is I like the ideas of things more than the things themselves. So I spend time just sort of thinking about the idea of doing something and not actually doing anything. I was thinking about making a video of the things in life, physical purchases, which is sad in itself, that's what came to me, that have been worth it, that have been good products that have been worth it for me and us, my wife and I. I remember thinking about this a while back. One of the things is being able to have a CD burner or a DVD burner. That's really useful to be able to back up your stuff. And nowadays, like an SSD, makes your computer so much faster. If you aren't using an SSD on your computer, you're really missing out because it speeds up everything from booting the machine to how long you have to wait for everything all the time. It makes a huge difference. Let's see, having flash drives. Like, it's so convenient to be able to just drag a folder of gigabytes of data to a flash drive and take it from one machine to another, and not have to worry about networking them together or whatever. And, you know, there's always the insecurity of when you network things, you know, you have to know what you're doing so you're not like making it available to everybody in the universe to get into your stuff. So it's always nice to have an SSD that's big enough for what you need to do for all the computers that you own, and to have some flash drives to be able to, you know, create a boot disk and run a live Linux USB flash disk and check out different Linux distributions. I mean, obviously not everybody does that, but that's a neat thing to be able to do. If you've never tried Linux, I highly recommend making a USB boot disk of a Linux distribution. There are many tools for doing this online, where you can, there are even programs that let you make multiple boot disks on one USB flash drive. So you could have a USB flash drive that has like 10 different things on it. That is like an emergency disk for your computer that can help you with your hard drive or whatever if it's not booting correctly, or that can copy one partition or hard drive to another. You could have 5 different Linux distributions that you could sample and just see what they're like and use it for like a week and figure out, is this the Linux distribution I want to try or not? And of course these days you can dual boot into Windows and Linux, or if you have a Mac, you can, I assume you can still run Windows if you want for gaming or whatever, and I assume that you can run Linux on a Mac. I mean, the Mac OS is a Unix variant itself, and I know I can dual boot into Windows, so I can't imagine why you wouldn't be able to dual boot into Linux. Anyway, there's so many possibilities for how we can spend our time and what we can do. So why aren't we doing the funnest thing all the time? The most, you know, the least harmful, funnest thing we can do. Anyway, I'll stop for now. This is probably of interest to no one. Because it's so hot already, it's April 10th in Austin, Texas. Because it's already so hot, this time of year, so that my wife doesn't get too cold and so I don't get too hot, I set the thermostat for 76 degrees, and then usually I'll just not wear a shirt, but I don't want to burden you guys with that. Anyway, so this is a view of my wife's living room. My living room that was in my old videos, I filled so full of records that it's almost inaccessible now. So that reminds me, I have episodes of Hoarders that I can watch. But what can you see in this image? Let's see, a pillow, a recliner that I'm in, books. I guess this is sort of a dark space at the moment. Anyway, if you have any ideas for things that I should talk about or any questions for me, please don't hesitate to ask. Bye, guys.